In the year 849, in the quiet Anglo-Saxon town of Wantage in Berkshire, a boy was born who would grow into one of the greatest rulers in English history, Alfred, son of King Athelwulf of Wessex. He was the youngest of 6 children, a prince who was not expected to inherit the throne. But destiny has a way of weaving its own path. As a child, Alfred was not only clever but deeply curious. He traveled to Rome at the age of 4, where Pope Leo IV himself blessed him, perhaps sensing the boy's future greatness. Even in his youth, Alfred showed a passion for learning, though he reportedly struggled with reading until later in life. Still, he absorbed stories of Rome, the Christian faith, and the responsibilities of kingship like a sponge seeds that would shape the man he was to become. The Anglo-Saxon kingdoms of England were not stable lands. During Alfred's youth, the Great Heathen Army of the Vikings, led by men like Ivar the Boneless, Halfdan Ragnarsson, and Ubba, swept through the British Isles with fire and sword. One by one, the smaller Anglo-Saxon kingdoms fell to the Norse invaders. By the time Alfred's elder brothers had ruled, Wessex was the last stronghold of Saxon resistance. When Alfred's brother, King Thellard, died in 871 after the bloody Battle of Merton, Alfred became king at the age of just 22. It was the most perilous of moments. The Vikings were already pressing hard into his kingdom, and the crown he inherited was one of both glory and unimaginable burden. In the early years of his reign, Alfred's situation was desperate. Viking forces were overwhelming, and by 878, after years of relentless struggle, his kingdom was nearly destroyed. Forced to flee into the marshes of Athelney and Somerset, Alfred became a king without a throne. Legend tells us that during these dark days, Alfred sought shelter in the home of a poor peasant woman. She, not recognizing her king, asked him to watch some cakes baking on the fire. Distracted by thoughts of reclaiming his land, Alfred let them burn, earning the woman's scolding. The story may be a myth, but it symbolizes Alfred's humility and the trials he endured in exile. Yet Alfred did not give up. From the marshes, he organized a guerrilla resistance, rallying his people. By spring of 878, he gathered his forces and confronted the Vikings at the Battle of Edington. There, Alfred achieved a stunning victory. He forced the Viking leader Guthrum to surrender, accept baptism, and retreat eastward. This triumph was the turning point Wessex had survived. After his victory, Alfred negotiated the Treaty of Wedmore with Guthrum, dividing England between Saxon and Viking rule. Wessex and western Mercia would remain under Alfred's protection, while the Vikings controlled the east and north, an area that became known as the Danelaw. This uneasy peace was not an end, but a pause in the conflict. Still, it gave Alfred the chance to strengthen his kingdom, rebuild, and prepare for the future. Alfred knew that the Vikings would return, and so he set about transforming Wessex into a fortress kingdom. He ordered the construction of a network of burhs, fortified towns, spread strategically across his lands. These strongholds could not easily be taken, providing safe havens for his people and quick rallying points for his army. He also reorganized the Fyrd, the Saxon militia, so that half could always be ready for battle while the other half worked the fields. This system ensured that his kingdom could withstand prolonged attacks without collapsing from within. Perhaps most importantly, Alfred recognized the power of the sea. He'd built and equipped a small but formidable navy, larger and faster than the Viking Longships. For this, many historians call him the father of the English Navy. But Alfred was not only a warrior. He was a visionary statesman and scholar. Troubled by the decline of learning in his kingdom due to years of war, he personally took charge of a cultural revival. Alfred himself learned to read Latin as an adult, and then began translating key texts into Old English so his people could access wisdom once locked away. Among his translations were Boethius' Consolation of Philosophy, Pope Gregory's Pastoral Care, and The History of the World by Orosius. Alfred believed that knowledge was as important as swords in defending a kingdom. A king, he once said, must not only be a warrior, but also a wise shepherd to his people. He established schools, encouraged literacy among nobles, and set the foundations for what would later evolve into a unified English identity. Deeply Christian, Alfred saw himself as a defender of not only his people, but of the Christian faith itself against pagan invaders. His laws were inspired by Mosaic law and Christian principles, blending mercy with justice. He viewed his kingship as a sacred duty, one entrusted to him by God. This belief gave him the strength to endure hardship and inspired his people to see their survival as part of a divine mission. Even in his later years, Alfred never knew complete peace. Viking raiders continued to strike at the edges of his kingdom, but thanks to his fortifications and military reforms, Wessex endured. By the time of his death in 899, Alfred had not only saved his kingdom, but laid the foundation for the unification of England under his descendants. He was succeeded by his son, Edward the Elder, and later his grandson Athelstan, who would become the first king to rule a united England. None of this would have been possible without Alfred's vision and determination. History remembers many kings, but only one English ruler is honored with the title, the Great. Alfred earned it not only through battlefield victories, but through his wisdom, reforms, and the legacy of hope he gave his people. He was more than a king. He was a founder, a defender, and a symbol of resilience. When England stood on the brink of annihilation, it was Alfred who turned despair into survival, and survival into greatness. Imagine the fires of Viking longships lighting the coasts. Imagine a kingdom on the edge of collapse. And then imagine a single man standing against a storm, determined, cunning, and unyielding. That was Alfred the Great, King of Wessex, 871 to 899, the man who saved England before England truly existed.